Hey kids, it's Mr. Fly here, hope you're well. Another month has absolutely shot by. We're into British summertime now, incredibly. Looking out my window, it's actually chucking it down with rain at the moment and about 5 degrees, so it doesn't feel much like British summertime, but March has gone, which means I've got some more editions of motorcycle news to go through with you. I've actually got 5 editions this time, so grab yourself a brew. This could be a long video. Okay then, so to the first newspaper, and lots going on this month, lots of great stuff in the paper, so yeah, as I say, this video could go on a bit. And if you stick around till the end as well, I'll give you a little update on what's going on with the channel and some of the things that you can expect over the next couple of weeks before my next live stream. Okay, so to the news then. Right, first up, here we go. Suzuki back with high-tech Hayabusa is the headline here. And this is one of these MCN images that they come up with occasionally. Oh, my screen's gone to sleep. Hopefully that'll come back in a minute. This is one of these MCN images that they mock up occasionally. And usually they're very, very accurate with them as well. So this one is actually based on some patent drawings that MCN have got sight of. And it shows that the Hayabusa is likely to come back. And it's going to come back with what looks like a semi-automatic gearbox as well, which is quite interesting. Now, it's a long time since Suzuki had a new Hayabusa. In fact, I think 2008 was when it was introduced, and we haven't seen many updates since then. It is still technically on their books, I believe, as a current model, but anyway, this one we're not likely to see for another couple of years yet, probably back into 2019, I think. But it's going to be fascinating to see what Suzuki come up with there, if indeed these patents get followed up. Why else would they produce patents if they're not going to do something with them? So something to watch out with there. It's bound to be a super performance bike, and you know, with things like the Kawasaki H2 SX around, this thing's got to go something to sort of maintain its hyperbike title. So it's going to be fascinating to see what they come up with. Suzuki could do with some exciting bikes, couldn't they? So yeah, it's going to be great if that one comes true. Okay, next article here I pulled out is this, Europe's Best Bike Factory. And this is an article about Royal Enfield, who now have a development centre here in the UK. Of course, Royal Enfield used to be a British company back in the 50s and 60s. Then they closed down at the sort of back end of the 60s, 70s, reopened in India, where they've been manufactured ever since. And I'm a bit of a fan of the brand. I just like the whole Britishness of it, even though, of course, they are currently built in India. Anyway, the good news is they've got lots of new bikes coming out. The one that I'm really looking forward to is the Interceptor, which is a sort of a retro naked bike that I think is going to be amazing, a 650. Really can't wait for that. But this article is all about the development centre that they've got here in the UK, based in Leicester. And it's actually run by some ex-Triumph employees, which gives it some good kudos as far as I'm concerned. And the article is saying that actually this is one of the most high-tech bike factories they've ever seen. Fascinating. So it's going to be really interesting to see what comes out here over the next few years. Loads of models coming up, and just one to keep an eye on. And it's gone from one employee, which was the ex-Triumph, I think it was Warburton is his second name, can't remember his first name, is it Simon? Anyway, he's the design guru. He started off this development centre, and they've now got, I think, something like 120 employees, so definitely growing. No visitor centre there yet, unfortunately, but wouldn't it be great, fascinating to have a look around that place? But there we go. So Royal Enfield, if you're watching, give us a shout. I'd love to come and have a look. Anyway, there we go. So that's that. Can't wait to see that Interceptor. That's going to be a corker. All right, next article that's come to my attention here is here. I was in the Alps within hours, fresh and ready is the article. This is all about this service called Bikeshuttle. I don't know if you've heard of it. I actually, every now and then when I ride up to actually the Triumph factory up at Hinckley, I go past one of these trucks. It's obviously stored there, a Bikeshuttle truck. And what they do is offer a service where they'll pick up your bike in Northampton. You then fly off via Luton Airport on an EasyJet or a similar cheap priced airline to Geneva to a hotel, and then next morning when you wake up, magically your bike is delivered there at the hotel from Bikeshuttle. So it saves you, if you want to do a tour of the Alps, for example, or the south of France, saves you all that boring ride through the middle of the continent, all the toll roads, wear and tear on your bike too, getting down there. Most of all, of course, it saves you time. So it sounds on the surface of it a great thing, and in terms of cost, it works out about the same cost as if you actually rode there yourself. So you're not losing out by doing this, you're just saving time and you're getting straight to the good riding, is the argument. And I completely buy into that. I mean, that sounds great. Although you could argue that part of these sort of touring holidays is the whole getting there yourself. I get that as well. But it does sound like a good service. I just wondered if anybody here has used it and how you found it. Because as I say, on the surface of it, it sounds great. For me, the only downside is the fact that it goes from Northampton. So, you know, unless you happen to be based within, you know, an hour's ride of Northampton, that in itself could be a bit of a pain, because instead of having a boring ride through northern France, you get a boring ride through central Britain to get to Northampton. So that's a bit odd. I think if it was based, you know, in the major cities, if it was in like Manchester and London, I think they'd probably do far better. But just interested to hear your views on that, particularly if you've used the Bikeshuttle service. Okay, next story here, final one from the first paper. And this is down here at the bottom here. Can you tour with the XMax? And this is somebody who's rapidly becoming my favourite MCN reporter for obvious reasons. She's called Maria Valahis. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong there, Maria. And she's been she hasn't been riding for that long actually, just a couple of years. And at the moment she's on an XMax, the Yamaha one. And this is the big scooter that I initially rode about a year or so ago now. It was the first big scooter I'd ever ridden, in fact, first ever scooter I'd ridden. And I really enjoyed it, and she's been off touring on it, and the question is, can you tour? Well, of course the answer is yes, you can tour on anything, of course, can't you? The beauty of doing it with one of these maxi scooters, of course, is one, quite cheap, they're quite frugal, they're very comfortable as well with a big screen and a big seat, but also you can carry all your kit under the seat, so you're not really, you know, encumbered with loads of luggage. So I think actually touring on a maxi scooter is a great idea, and I don't know why more people don't do it, but there we go. It's back to the old issue of why aren't scooters more, you know, more popular in Britain? I guess it's to do with the weather, but I love the idea of touring in one, so well done, Maria, for doing that. All right, that's it for the first paper. On to the next one. Okay, here we go then. First thing out of the second paper from March. New BMW RT on the way is the headline here. Now this is amazing news as far as I'm concerned, because I'm a massive fan of the BMW RT. I don't know if you saw my review. Again, I rode this about 18 months or so ago, and it's a video of mine that got loads of views unexpectedly. I didn't think it was going to be that popular, but in fact, it's got tens of thousands of views, if not hundreds of thousands. And I really enjoyed riding the bike. Initially, before I had a BMW of my own, I was not a fan of the boxer engine. I didn't like the way that the cylinders poked out the side. I thought they were going to drag on the ground. Didn't much like the way they sounded or looked. But once you've ridden one of these big bikes with a boxer engine, you quickly realise what the advantage is, and that is that the weight is so low down. And the RT is no different. In fact, when I rode the RT and compared it to my GS, even though it's got the same engine, I thought the RT was a nicer bike to ride. Marginal, but nicer. It's got better wind protection, slightly more comfortable, maybe a bit lower, get your feet on the deck a bit easier. And it's just built for comfort. So if you're not going off-road at all, then, and you just want to do touring, I think it's very hard to beat the RT. And it's a bike that continually wins the best touring bike category in all the magazines year after year. And it looks like BMW are coming out with a new revamped version, because this is a spy shot that MCN have seen. And the big difference with this is looks like they're going to put a bigger engine in it, a 1250cc unit with variable valve timing. So that's going to be fascinating to see. Don't know when we're going to see it. It's going to be a while, I expect, but when it does come out, I really hope that I'm able to get a ride on this. If I were to sell my GS, the bike I would replace it with would either be another GS or GS Adventure or one of these. I've not yet found another bike I like more than that, so really looking forward to seeing what they actually come up with when the final production version of the RT is out and about. Okay, so that was that one. Next story here. Oh my, the KTM 790 Duke. Now, this bike was all over all the press, wasn't it, when the launch was done? The press launch must have been done this month, and everybody went out there and rode the thing. And all the reports I've read and seen are that it's an amazing bike. In fact, MCN have said, move over Yamaha and Triumph. They think it's better than the MT-09 and the Street Triple. So I'll reserve judgment on that, but you know, I'll take them at face value. I'm sure it's a great bike. I loved both the Super Duke R when I borrowed that long term, and the Baby Duke, the 390. So I'm absolutely sure the 790, you know, splitting those two down the middle, is going to be a really brilliant fun bike. Realistic power for the roads as well, not super nutty like the Super Duke R, but great fun nonetheless. And I think it looks good as well, which for KTMs, sometimes their looks are a bit odd, but this one I think looks all right. So really looking forward to get my hands on one of these when I can. I shall be in touch with my friends at KTM soon, hopefully to ride one of these in the summer, and I'll bring you my thoughts on it. But yeah, amazing looking bike, and it's incredible value for money as well. It's on the market for $8,499, and it's got loads of electronics, things like lean angle ABS that I don't think the Street Triple has, or the MT-09. It's got an up and down quick shifter, whereas the Street Triple just has an up quick shifter, I believe. MT-09, I think it's just an up quick shifter as well. So yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how this goes. Oh, by the way, I rode the MT-09 SP only last week, and I've got a review of that coming up soon. I think it's coming up on Friday. That I really loved as well. A great bike, so it's going to be fascinating to compare how I found the MT-09 SP against the Street Triple, which of course I know well, being a Street Triple owner myself. So yeah, I really can't wait to ride this one, given all the reviews that I've seen. I'll wait for the hype to die down a bit and all the track days and wheeling stuff, and I'll go out in the rain and see how she does. So yeah, looking forward to tapping KTM up for a go on that one. All right, third article in this paper then. Just lube the old throat. BMW's MIDI GS comes of age. Now this is the BMW F850 GS, a bike that loads of people have asked me when am I going to get a ride of this, because this was announced some time back. It seems like we've been waiting for it for about a year. I don't know if it is that case, if that is the case, but I think it looks a fantastic bike. It looks a bit more like a GS should look to me. They've moved the fuel tank from where it was before under the seat to the normal position, so I think that might help with balance. It just looks better. It's better spec'd. It's a great looking bike. Now I was down at with my friends at Barnstorm, on my local BMW dealer, only this week, and I was talking to them about this. When are they going to get this in? They still don't have it. Oh, incoming message. Okay. It's the bike still isn't available to dealers, but as soon as it is, they're going to give me a call, and hopefully I'll get a ride on one of these. So looking forward to bringing you a review of that. I think it's going to give the Triumph Tiger 800 a run for its money. I love the Tiger 800. I think it's a bike that hits the sweet spot. It's got ample power, but it's not so big and heavy that it's it means it's only available to the biggest and heaviest of us. This bike I think is going to be in that same spot, and it's going to be interesting to see how those two compete. So there you are. That's the new BMW GS F850. All right, and last but not least out of this paper, this is a fascinating feature that MCN have done. They often do these features comparing different bikes, but here they've talked about what are the middleweight bikes that you can buy second-hand that they would recommend. If you can't afford the new KTM 790, what instead can you go out and get? And it's no surprise to me, having ridden them both, that the top two bikes that they're recommending second-hand, if you're in this market, is the Triumph Street Triple and the Yamaha MT-09, the two bikes I just mentioned. As I say, they're both great bikes to ride. If you can pick one up second-hand, and they're saying you can get a Street Triple from £4,000 and a Yamaha MT-09 from about £4,500, then you're on to a winner, and that sounds like a lot of fun for the money to me. Brilliant bikes, both of them. If you've not ridden them and you like these sort of bikes, do give them a go, because you could definitely pick up an absolute winner, I think, second-hand, as indeed that's what MCN have said. Okay, so there we go. That's it for the second paper of the month. Cracking through. How are we doing for time? Okay, we're doing okay. Next one then. Right. The front page of this one gives away one of the stories I'm going to talk about. This is the Triumph Scrambler. We'll get to that in a second. In fact, we'll get to it right now because it's the first story that I had bookmarked here. So this here is a spy shot of the new Scrambler that Triumph are going to be bringing out. This is the Scrambler 1200. So it has the engine, I suspect, out of the Thruxton, probably tuned slightly differently. And what they've done is thrown quite a bit of bling at the bike as well. It's got Olin suspension, at least at the rear. It's got a really nice looking headlight. They've done a really nice job, and it's got top quality Brembo brakes at the front. It looks really, really good. Now, I don't know when this one is coming out. MCN reckon that we'll see the production version probably at the end of 2019. But I just love the Scrambler genre of bikes, and I think it's something that Triumph do particularly well. I think if Steve McQueen was around now, this may be a bike that he's riding. So yeah, really looking forward to seeing what this comes out like in the flesh, and maybe, you never know, maybe we'll see it at this year's NEC show up in Birmingham in November. But yeah, one to look out for. Looking forward to seeing that. Okay, next story here. Now this is interesting. Ducati's Peaky Blinder. This is the new Pikes Peak version of the Ducati Multistrada, the big version of the bike. Now, I'm generally a big fan of the Multistrada just because I like the way it looks. I think out of all the adventure bikes, it's the best looking machine. And I've previously loved the Pikes Peak versions as well. But I have to say, I don't really like this one very much. I think the previous one had some green in it, so it looked, the paint scheme actually appealed to me a bit more. It looked a bit more Italian. But for this one, although I'm sure technically it's a better bike and an improvement, it just doesn't do anything for me looks-wise, which is a real shame, because the reason why I like the Multistrada is because of its looks. Actually riding it, for me, if anything, if I admit it, it's got a bit too much of a powerful engine for me. It's really like a sports bike in adventure bike clothing. And also I've found the bike a little bit top heavy compared to other bikes. But this particular one, I think they've taken a bit of a retro step. I mean, they've got this windscreen on it that's opaque black, so you can't see through it, and it just looks horrible in my view. That would need to be replaced, and I don't think, as I say, the paint scheme is as good as the last one. MCN loved it. They gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I mean, it's got a full colour screen, it's got Brembos on it, it's got, it's highly spec'd. It is no doubt a lovely bike, but it's £21,000. That is one huge chunk of change, isn't it, for a motorcycle? 21 grand for a Pikes Peak Multistrada that I don't think looks as good as last year's one. Anyway, just interested in your views on that. Is it just me, or does this not look as nice as the old one? Sorry, Ducati, just don't think you've got that one quite right. Just my opinion, of course. You might love it. Be interested to hear. Okay, next up. Are Adventures the New Sports is the title of this article. And here MCN proposed that, you know, we've got an ageing population of bikers. Of that there is no doubt. I just look at my Google Analytics, it tells me the age of the people that are watching my videos. I know that people generally are a bit older that watch videos on YouTube, for example. And if you look at the sales figures as well, it's adventure bikes that are selling more than sports bikes. So I think the answer to the question is probably resounding yes. These are the bikes that people are buying now, and that's why manufacturers are going down that route so much. But of course, some people may disagree. In fact, more about that a bit later. But an interesting question. You know, I love sports bikes. I own a sports bike. I love my Ducati Panigale. Every time I go in the garage and see it there, I love it. I look at it and think, oh, what a beautiful bike. And then I jump on my GS and ride that instead. So there's obviously something about adventure bikes that is hitting the spot, even though you could argue they don't look as good. So there we go, an interesting question. And number 4 here, what was this one about? Oh yeah, this is an interesting little article tucked away down here at the bottom. Boorman's bike goes up for sale. Now Charley Boorman is, I'm a fan of Charley Boorman's. I've never met him or anything, don't know the guy, but he seems like a nice chap. I recently read his book actually, which was fascinating. He had a big accident, an off, probably about 2 years ago now, which really messed up his legs big time, and he was in hospital for a year. But a fascinating book if you get the chance to read it. Maybe I'll put a link below to it. Anyway, his bike is up for sale. It's a Triumph Explorer XCA, and it's done 328 miles. So that was a bit that set off alarm bells. Now he is what Triumph call, I think, an ambassador of theirs. Now I don't know how this works, although I have a good relationship with Triumph, but nothing commercial. They certainly don't pay me any money, and they don't owe me anything, I don't owe them anything. But I think in the case of Charley Boorman, they pay him some sort of retainer each year, or maybe give him a good deal on a bike or something, so that he goes out and says good things about Triumphs, which he duly does. He goes on tours with them, goes on their launches as well, and it seems like a good arrangement. But selling his bike after 328 miles, is that, my question to you is that because he's been laid up in hospital and he wants a newer one, wants to give that a try, which is a completely fair excuse, or not even an excuse, that's a good reason, or has he just not got on with it and just has decided not to ride it very much? Don't know, or maybe it's a bit of both. But anyway, interesting that his bike, as an ambassador for Triumph, so you know he rides Triumphs a lot presumably, getting sold after only 328 miles. All right, so that's that one. 3 out of 5 done. Let's have another quick lubricate. Right, we're getting there. You still with me? Maybe pause it, get yourself another brew if it's going on too long. Right, so 4th paper. First story here, hot new Super Duke R. Now, I already mentioned that I love the Super Duke R. Regular viewers of the channel will know how much I like it, although personally for me it's possibly a bit too hairy for the road. I would never tap into its full potential on the road, and I'm not a massive track fan, so it's probably a bit wasted on me, which is why I'm so looking forward to the 790, which might hit the spot a bit better for me. But anyway, nonetheless, I did love the Super Duke R when I rode it. Unbelievable bike, there's no doubt about it. It's exciting, laden with electronics, and boy is it fast. Well, they're coming out with a new one, another spy shot here that MCN has taken. This is the Euro 5 compliant Super Duke R. Can you believe Euro 5 is upon us? So we ain't going to see this for a while, again late 2019 probably, before it breaks cover. But what they've managed to deduce from the spy shots is it's obviously got a different exhaust setup because of Euro 5, but it also appears to have a new frame and a new shock mounting setup. So the bike is going to be dynamically somewhat different. So it's going to be interesting to see how this comes out, but that's the first spy shot I've seen of that. Keep your eyes peeled for more on the new Super Duke R soon. So if you're in the market for a Super Duke R, maybe you want to hold on, although you'll be waiting for a couple of years, so maybe buy one now and trade it in 2019 for another one. All right, so that's exciting news. Can't wait to see that coming out. Okay, the letters page. Now, occasionally I like to read the letters because it's interesting to see what people are talking about on here. And this one is from somebody called J. Lewis in Cheshire. What No Dealers is the title of the piece, and he's basically saying that, you know, he loves the looks of KTM's and Aprilias, but because of where he lives, there's absolutely no dealers nearby, so it's impractical for him to go and buy one. Not only because of buying and test riding, but also then subsequent servicing and so on. So he's saying he's stuck with Honda or Suzuki. Could be worse, but there we go. So it's interesting. I just wondered what your experiences were on dealership coverage. I'm quite lucky. Living in the southeast, there are basically dealers for pretty much all bikes within easy reach. Having said that, I do struggle. I don't know where the local Moto Guzzi dealer is, for example, Moto Guzzi, although, to be fair, I haven't even looked. And also, Aprilia dealers seem very thin on the ground around here. So I've not ridden any Aprilias as a result of that. I would love to do so. Again, Aprilia, if you're watching, get in contact. So that would be good. So I just wondered what your thoughts were. I mean, he mentions KTM and Aprilia here. I say he, I'm assuming it's a he. I'm very lucky. My local KTM dealer, the KTM Centre in Hemel Hempstead, is probably one of the bigger dealers in the country, if not the biggest. Fantastic setup they got there. great chaps that work there. They all seem to be enthusiasts, and it's a lovely dealership. Tucked out the way a bit. If you're after a KTM, go and hunt them out if Hemel Hempstead is, you know, within doable range from you, because it's well worth going and checking them out. But yeah, so what a shame that he's missing out on other marques. Just wondered what your thoughts were on the sort of spread of dealerships across the country. Where's the worst place in the country, I wonder, to live for getting a go on other bikes? Don't know. All right, next article here then. From India with Love is the title, and this is the Royal Enfield, second mention of them this time. The Royal Enfield Himalayan, as it's actually pronounced, although you and I may call it the Himalayan. It's actually pronounced Himalayan, apparently. I rode this bike again about 6-8 months ago. Quite liked it. I mean, it's very basic. It's a Royal Enfield of the old school. Having said that, it's one of the better Royal Enfields I've ever ridden. They have upped their game on this, but the looks, to me, are something that take a bit of loving. It is a sort of a dual sport bike. It's intended to be ridden on-road and off. I never tried it off-road. On-road, I found it fine. MCN have said, actually, that they hated it on-road. They said that, you know, it's a bit of a dog. But off-road, fine. Very rugged, excellent value for money. Just wondered what you thought on this. I haven't seen any of these in the wild yet, so I don't know how well they're selling. It's taken a long while for these to come to the UK. They were launched in India a couple of years back and had all sorts of issues, which they got resolved before they shipped it out to Europe, which is quite interesting that they did that at all. But anyway, it's here now. Waiting to see them on the road. Haven't seen many, but yeah, so interesting that MCN have had a look at that now. Okay, and then the last story here in this paper, which was last week's paper, Kawasaki H2 SX behind the hype. Now this is an interesting article by John Urry. He's done a really in-depth look at the H2 SX to try and work out, is this bike, you know, all it's cracked up to be? This is the supercharged bike that came out a couple of years back. And now, of course, it's followed as well by the H2 SX SE. The H2 SX is the touring version. The H2 was the supercharged one that came out a couple of years back. This is the touring version, the H2 SX, which is more recent. And in fact, I'm going to ride one of these, hopefully, weather permitting, week after next. So I'm really looking forward to that. And of course, I will bring you my first impressions review. But anyway, what did John Urry make of it? Well, he said it was you know, as you'd expect, a great bike, fast, and all the rest of it, and pretty good price as well, the H2 SX compared to the H2. But his interesting conclusion, I thought, was that its biggest competitor, he thinks, is Kawasaki's own ZZR 1400. And in fact, he said for the price, you're possibly better off getting the ZZR 1400. It has a bit more drama about it, he was saying. So very interesting conclusion to this. Obviously, the H2 SX has got a lot more up-to-date electronics thrown at it, cornering ABS, lights, etc. But as I say, he was arguing that maybe the ZR 1400 is the way to go if you're after this sort of hyperbike. Interesting conclusion. Can't wait to ride it myself and see. I've never ridden the ZZR 1400, so I can't do that comparison, but it will be interesting to try a supercharged bike. Alrighty, still with me? Okay, coming on to the final edition of the paper for this month's review then. This is the paper out today, hot off the press. It literally came through the post box just as I was about to start filming this. And the first story I've pulled out here is another scooter story. Now you may know I'm a recent scooter convert. I think for the purpose for which they're built, if you want urban transport, short distance transport, then scooters are a great way to go. If you poo-poo them, if you've not tried them, then I think you're missing out. They're great fun as well. But this company here, Kymco, have come out with a cheap electric version of a scooter, and the way they've fixed the issue of range and charge time is they've got these batteries that you just swap out. The idea being that they're going to have these batteries available at charging points, at companies where you can go and swap the batteries out, and it's very easy to do. You can even carry spare batteries in the bottom of the bike as well, so it keeps the centre of gravity very low. So that's a very interesting fix to that problem. We'll see how that goes. I mean, the problem with all this, of course, is it all depends on critical mass, isn't it? There's no doubt this would work and be fantastic if those battery swapping points were all over the place, but getting to that point is going to be very expensive, and they may or may not succeed, but let's hope they do, because what would be better in terms of urban transport than a small electric scooter around London or whatever big city where you can just swap the batteries out? I think it would be brilliant. It would do lots for sorting out congestion. It would do lots for sorting out pollution. This is the sort of thing that the Mayor of London should be putting money into, I think, and getting us on two wheels. That would solve a lot of problems instead of the approach that he is taking, but that's for another time. Okay, so that's the Kymco electric scooter. We'll see how that goes. Back to the letters page. This is a letter that was in response to the article we talked about just now. Adventure, no thanks, this person says. This person being Mark from Essex. Interestingly, doesn't give a second name. He's saying that he's been riding sports bikes since the 80s. I'm not sure, it doesn't say actually how old he is, but he implies he's a man of maturing years. And there's no way he'd put his leg over an adventure bike. He's got a Panigale 899 at the moment. Good man, he obviously has some taste. But he thinks that adventure bikes are the dullest, most awful looking things on two wheels. Yes, most of us bikers are getting older, grey hair and all, and crave comfort, but below that, I wouldn't dream of slinging my leg over one of those. So here's an interesting alternative view. He's entitled to have his view, but of course the sales statistics and everything else would point to the fact that he's wrong. Most people are going down that route, but there we go. Interesting, not everybody is such a fan of adventure bikes as I am. Okay, so that was that letter. Penultimate story before we get onto the parish notices about the channel. Going big, this is Ducati's new Scrambler. This is the 1100cc version. Now, the Ducati Scrambler is a bike that I rode, it was a couple, 2 or 3 years ago now when they first came out. I rode the original Scrambler, the vanilla one, and of course the range has grown hugely since then. There are something like 8 or 9 different versions of the Scrambler you can now buy. One thing although I didn't actually like the Scrambler that much, for me it just felt a bit too toy-like. Something I didn't think it needed was more power. It actually felt quite powerful, but now they've gone ahead and put an 1100cc engine in it, which is going to make this thing a bit of a monster, no pun intended. So MCN have ridden this, and it does look nice. I must admit, they've put some extra effort into the fit and finish of it, and it now looks like a worthy competitor to things like the Triumph T120 and, of course, the Kawasaki Z900 RS, which is on the screen there, which I loved so much when I rode that recently. So I think I'm going to have to revisit the Scrambler, and I might have to have a talk to my friends at Ducati in the summer, see if I can get a ride of these. They start from 10,695, so it's in the same sort of ballpark as the Triumph and the Kawasaki, and it does look nice, it has to be said. So, and I really like the underslung exhaust on here as well. It's got you know, echoes of things like the Speed and Street Triple. They went out of fashion underslung exhaust, didn't they, a few years back because of the weight issues of having them high up. But I actually think they look great. So yeah, I think I'm going to have to get myself a ride on one of those soon. What do you reckon? Do you think the Scrambler's worth another look? All right, okay, so to the final story in today's paper then, which I picked up. Rule Britannia is the title, and the basic premise here is that we're in a golden age of British motorcycling. In fact, British motorcycling has never been so good. And it's got an article here about the various marks of bike that you can get made in Britain. Triumph, of course, is all over it, but others too. Interesting here, they've got a picture of Prince William. He recently visited the Triumph factory up at Hinckley. This is out the front of the visitor centre by the look of it, and Triumph managed to get snaps of him on all sorts of bikes, including the Tiger 1200. So what an absolute marketing coup to get Prince William to sit on their bike. So I noticed that Triumph have been using some of those pictures and making statements like fit for a king and stuff like that, which is brilliant, and absolutely, why wouldn't you? So, and actually, isn't this the function of the royal family? If they're popular abroad, then great that they promote British products as well. So fantastic for that. Anyway, that wasn't the point of the article. It was just pointing out some of the other British bikes that you can buy, some of which are great. But amusingly, a lot of them, of course, aren't British at all. So they've mentioned, for example, down here, BSA. The rights to BSA were bought a while back from another Indian company, Mahindra, and they've been hinting around Christmas that they're going to bring out a new BSA soon, which I can't wait to see. But of course, will it be a British bike? Not really, will it? It'll have some historical links. Obviously they'll use the history of BSA to their advantage, but of course it won't be a British bike. And then there are other examples here as well. So for example, AJS, Herald, Francis Barnett, all names from the past, and these bikes all look great, but they're all Chinese built. Nothing against Chinese bikes. In fact, you know, I'm one of the bigger fans you'll find of Chinese bikes, but to say that they're British, I think is probably pushing it a little bit. Can't argue with the likes of Norton and Hesketh, of course, but very small players in terms of volume. Royal Enfield, again, we've mentioned them a couple of times in this video. Okay, they have got now a British presence, but of course it is an Indian company, no getting away from that. Brough Superior, amazing looking bikes, but I believe made in France now. Not really anything British about those. An Ariel, of course, which is thoroughly British. So we'll end on that note. So well done, Ariel, for being properly British. And what an amazing looking bike. Haven't seen one of those in the wild yet either, but and they've been around for a couple of years now, but I'm sure they're absolutely amazing. Alrighty, that's it for the newspaper review this month then. Hopefully that's given you a bit of a sort of a heads up on some of the stuff that's been hitting the press. Just thought, for those of you that have stuck around all the way to the end here, you might be interested in some of the other stuff that's coming up on the channel over the next couple of days between now and the next live stream. So just to let you know, oh, one thing I must mention, the Principal Insurance prize draw that I've been running for the last couple of months, where you can win a holiday for two in the Canary Islands, just for getting yourself a quote with Principal Insurance. The closing date for that is this Saturday, so day after the day after tomorrow, 31st of March is the last chance you've got to enter that. Principal are open in the morning on the Saturday, so you could get a quote then. But if you are interested in getting a quote for your motorcycle insurance and you fancy being entered for free into this fantastic holiday prize draw, then give them a call on the numbers that you'll see at the end of the video and mention the Bissenden Flyer, and you'll get entered into that. You've only got a couple of days, as I say, to do that now, so do that. I mentioned the next live stream. They seem to be going down quite well. I really enjoy doing them. I do them just here. I've had a few technical issues. The one before last, I think I had some problems with the lighting. The last one, I had issues with the microphone. In fact, I sat in front of that very microphone, but it wasn't switched on, so it was very echoey. Hopefully I'll get that all fixed this time. I've got some new graphics I've been playing with, so hopefully it's going to look a bit more professional this time. But make a note in your diaries. Wednesday, April the 18th, 8 PM UK time is going to be when I do the next live stream. Of course, we're in British summertime now, so if you're in another country, our timings may be out of sync a bit. Don't worry though, if you can't watch it live, it will be posted, of course, as a recorded video. Really enjoy doing those. It'd be great if you can come along to that. It'll be rubbish if I do a live stream and there's no one watching. So yeah, make a note of that one. And also, on the 18th of April, I will also announce who was the winner of that fantastic biking holiday, because the draw will have been made by then, so I'll let you know who won that as well. Another thing that I've got coming up soon is a collaboration with my newest sponsor, Speedo Angels. I mentioned these guys last time. These are the people that make the little screen protectors for your motorcycle. Do check them out. Got a collaboration coming in the next month with them where you can get some great deals on their kit as well, so keep an eye out for that. In terms of videos coming up on the channel soon, in the next few days, as I say, before the next live stream, I've got the MT-09 SP review. I think that's going up this Friday. Really enjoyed that last week. I rode that. Do check out that review. I've got some vlogging stuff. I did a ride out recently with a couple of Powers 2 H's CAF down in Oxfordshire. That's just a fun little ride on a nice day, a rare nice day, so that's coming up. Lots coming on the Triumph Tiger 1200. Triumph have lent me one of those long term. I've had it for a number of weeks and I've done a few videos on that. Those videos will start to air in the next few days, so keep a look out for those. The Honda CV650F, I've ridden that as well. I've got a review of that coming up. More on the R9T. Those videos seem to go down well. Much more on the R9T coming. More scooters as well. Some interesting stuff on scooters. Back to the electric stuff. I rode the big BMW electric scooter. So that's coming up. And of course, more kit reviews as well. So all sorts of stuff coming up between now and the next live stream, which is, say, Wednesday, April the 18th, 8 PM, make a note. So that's that. And then just to finish off, I guess, just say thanks again to my sponsors. As I say, I've now got 3 sponsors. Custom Fit Guards, the people that make the earplugs, specifically sponsor this one. So thanks to them for sponsoring the bike news and for the live streams as well. Do go and check those out. If you go and visit any of my sponsors, that's Principal, Custom Fit Guards and Speedo Angels, you're supporting the channel, because if those guys see that you're moving to their websites from mine, that means it works, and that means they'll keep sponsoring me. So that's one way you can support the channel. That would be fantastic. Thanks very much. All right, that's it for now. Hope that's been of some interest. Look forward to reading your comments. Speak to you next time. Until then, this has been the Bissenden Flyer. Cheerio.